It's blocked. I think it's a good thing to start with perhaps the most obvious depiction of love in art that we have in this city, and that would be this fine copy of Bernini's Apollo and Daphne. Now, for those of you who don't know the story, Apollo, the Greek god, is perhaps the personification of ultimate masculinity in all its virtue. He is the god of athleticism, he's the god of archery, he's also the god of music. He is a strapping young man, forever young, who can shoot, who can play music, and who's a great athlete. Something to which many people, many young men, many young boys aspire to today. And what happened here is that Apollo, being the god of archery, saw Cupid, who we all know as the god of love. And Cupid has a bow as well. Now, Cupid is a child or a toddler, and Apollo saw Cupid practicing with his bow and mocked him because he was the god of archery and he was this little child trying to shoot things with his bow. And Apollo, filled with hubris due to his achievements, decided to mock this little child practicing with a bow. And so Cupid decided to get his revenge on Apollo by showing him just how good he was with his own bow. And so he shot Apollo with a golden arrow, which made him fall in love with the first person that he saw. But he wasn't finished. What he did then, to further compound and torment Apollo and punish him for his hubris, was to shoot Daphne here with a lead arrow, which made her repulsed by the first person that she saw. So when the two people saw each other, Apollo fell madly in love with Daphne, and Daphne was absolutely repulsed by Apollo. Apollo gave chase to Daphne to try and convince her of his love. Normally for Apollo, this was a very easy thing to do, given his physical attributes and his talents. However, Daphne rejected him, and in the end, when Apollo caught up with Daphne, she asked her father, who happened to be the river god of the river that they were passing, to save her. And so he turned her into a tree as soon as Apollo caught up with her. This tree was the laurel tree, and as a result, Apollo, filled with grief, decided to honor the laurel tree forever by taking its branches and making a crown out of it, which is why heroes and athletes, even to this day, are rewarded with a crown of laurels. Now, the thing I like about this story is that it has a bit of everything. It covers all aspects of love. If you take the story as a whole, you have pride, hubris, the summit of achievement being taken down by love. Perhaps the biggest player of the entire story is Cupid, because we're all familiar with the phrase, love conquers all. However, I think it's very misunderstood, and a friend of mine many years ago first put me onto this way of thinking with a subject like this. If you take the idea of love conquering all, we normally think of Sleeping Beauty by Walt Disney, the end of this. But in actual fact, I think it means that it wrecks everything. It completely destroys any sense of purpose or order, and that is why you get someone like Apollo being driven madly in love by the influence of falling in love with Daphne. It was by the story, it's out of his control. And likewise, her reaction to his advances is also out of her control. Cupid is the puppet master in this fictional story. And I think the sort of moral of this story is the destructive nature of love, how it can produce such beautiful moments. If you look at the actual sculpture itself, it's a classic example of how art manages, or great art manages to depict scenes of complete chaos and disaster in the most graceful and beautiful ways. And I think that's what helps it transmit the deeper meaning behind all of these subjects. If you look here at how her fingers are transforming so delicately into laurel branches and leaves, and how the sense of motion is so easily captured, in something that's completely static. It's really quite remarkable. And it's very similar to what happens in music, in classical music. You get a transmission of emotions and ideas through sound, all of which is inanimate. It's really remarkable. The original in the Borghese Gallery is actually quite something to behold. It's huge and made of marble. But there is something rather charming about this wooden copy done around the same time, because it's also made of wood, just like the laurel tree.